Happy Friday, everybody. It is Penny and Kim lighting up your Friday with the 5 stars of strengthening families. We are going to be continuing the communication series, so social emotional competence of children. And before we do that, though, we're going to check in from last week with our little challenge that we had for you, and Penny's going to do that for us.
Yeah, hi, welcome everyone. Last week we had talked about how do you know what your child's feeling besides talking about it. So we talked a little bit about behavior conveying and looking beneath the big feelings for what might be going on, and then starting to develop that language for your children, or just being present as they worked through it. So we asked you to sort of become a detective again and have a look and see if you noticed, even for yourself or with your children, what might be going on underneath what you can see and what you can talk about. So looking at behavior and looking at what that might be communicating. So hopefully you had a chance to give that a try. And again, feel free to, in the comments, please, if you've discovered something or you've learned something, by all means, put it in the comments. I do believe to be able to comment on the videos, you have to be signed into your Google account. That's just a little heads up, or you won't be able to comment. And I think you have to subscribe to our Parents Eureka Warner FCSS YouTube channel. But please, we're always looking for feedback. Yeah. So today, continuing on, teaching our little people, tiny humans, about how to develop social and emotional competence. And you know what's really kind of good is we get to practice it too. So we get to practice, and that models to our tiny people, medium-sized people. So today we're going to talk about, so Kim, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you handle it when your child's feelings stir up negative feelings in you?
So, first of all, I think is realizing that I've got the negative feelings, that I'm stirred up or furred up, and just questioning that, oh, this maybe isn't, because oftentimes I think we feel justified. Well, it's because he did that. Like, that's annoying to everybody, isn't it? But the reality is, what might annoy me might actually not annoy you. What actually, right? So, it was a huge aha moment for me when I realized that. And now whenever I am furred up or stirred up or triggered, some people call it, I like to become the detective and ask myself, oh, isn't that interesting? I'm feeling that. Because I, as a young parent, when I first started out, I just thought, they're doing that. I'm upset because they did that. That's why I'm upset. That's why I'm triggered. That's why I'm furred up, because they did that and they weren't supposed to. It takes a lot, I think, of becoming self-aware to start looking at that. So I'm going to stop there and let you share and see what you've got to say about that.
First of all, I love the furred up because it makes me think of my little 6-month-old puppy who gets her hackles all up at the birds. I don't know what, anything. She's barking at nothing and she's got her hackles raised. So anyways, furred up is great. Yeah, and that bit about so regulating ourselves. So the idea where you said, well, it's because they're, they're being this or they're being that, and that's why I'm irritated. I think that for myself, I can't speak for your experience, but I wasn't taught this stuff as a child. My parent wasn't aware of this, and not that I'm throwing her under the bus, she just didn't know, right? No, he did, so now as a grown-up with children, I'm sort of working through this for myself as I try to help them work through it. So it's never too late to develop these skills. That's the great thing about the human brain, is it's constantly able to evolve and learn. However, it's a lot harder when you're a grown-up and you're entrenched in that idea of, well, if only you were this way, then I would be fine.
Right.
I'd never get angry if you didn't act like that. So, yeah, and you didn't go there nice restraint. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about those two words, or that one word, negative feelings.
Right.
We talked a little bit about this before, but I'm of the opinion, and there's some pretty good research behind the ideas that emotions just exist, that quantifying them or making them negative or positive is just kind of something our brains like to put things into places. They like to make sense of things. So there is some thought that feelings are feelings. We don't have to be. We don't have to say that being angry or frustrated is negative and being happy is positive. So if that's something that bothers you, just think about them as feelings, and maybe big feelings. But anyways, so how do I handle it when my child's feelings triggers me or furs me up? Fur up? Sounds like I'm getting that wrong. Stirs up those feelings in me. Well, sometimes I handle it by yelling. That's not my optimum days. Or, just like, I'm out of here, I can't do this. But, what I'd like to do is to try to just stop and take a breath. Stop, drop, and roll kind of idea. Stop, drop my agenda, just breathe, be kind to myself. Notice, like that thing you said, like, oh, isn't that interesting? And that makes me smile, because when I have a presenter who talks about how to talk to your kids about sex, and she's like, teach your kids to think like scientists. So not like, oh, that's gross. It's, oh, isn't that interesting? Right? So be the detective, be the scientist about your own feelings. Isn't that interesting? Instead of, well, I shouldn't do that. Well, isn't it interesting? Like isn't it interesting that I want to scream at my child for dropping their water bottle on the tile floor and scaring the bejesus out of me, right? Like, our brains they work so quickly. It's really hard to catch them before they kind of, So that's.
And I think that's the process. I think it's a process. I think it starts with first realizing that I'm furred up, or realizing that I'm triggered, or whatever you want to call it. And then when I start justifying it, well, it's because he did that or she did that. Realizing, oh, now I'm justifying. So at some point, where can you look at yourself in that? Where can you become more aware in that? And for me, sometimes it's, my fists are clenched, or I'm yelling, or my teeth are, my jaw, is clenched. All of those things, I start to realize, oh, you know what? I'm triggered. That's what this is about, right? Because some things that, your kids do don't even faze other parents, right? So for me, it's personal growth, really, and it's a really great way to pass on to your children. Like you said, we weren't raised like this, and your parents didn't know, and so this is fabulous. If we can become self-aware in raising our children, then we can pass that on to our kids too.
Yeah, and I love that.
So tuning into your body, and for me, yeah, go ahead.
The self-regulation part, right? Is if you can't co-regulate, which is helping your child to regulate their own emotions, deal with them. You can't really effectively do that if you aren't doing it for yourself first. And it is a practice.
Right.
It's a whole new brain pathway to widen that space in between the incident and the reaction.
And oftentimes it is afterwards, when we're working in the memory of it. Oftentimes in the heat of the moment, we can't do it then because of our fight or flight response. We're just not there. But it happens when afterwards, like you say, when there's been some space. But eventually, my goal is to get to before it happens, to start realizing it when it's happening, so that I can stop that from happening. But there's no perfect in this. We're humans. We have a limbic system. We have a brain that reacts. So the goal is always to try to figure it out, catch it as early as I can, but it doesn't always happen. And sometimes it is having to do the repair work after I have been triggered or furred up.
And understanding that, and this science, right? Your brain, like you're talking about your limbic system, your brain reacts instantly. So when your child, let's say, tells a lie, something innocent, whatever. Yeah, I picked my clothes up, and they haven't. Your brain has this tendency to sort of, well, lots of brains, maybe not every brain, but that fear-based, oh, they're telling a lie. They're going to become a liar. They're going to become delinquent. You know, your brain goes there in the blink of an eye, and then you're just way up here in the red zone because you're like, oh, they're going to be a delinquent. When really, okay, so what's actually happened is they didn't feel like picking up their clothes, and they knew if they said yes, that you would make them go do it, and they didn't want to go do it. End up. But our brains have a tendency as parents to really, and lightning quick. And so you're right. A lot of it is going to happen after, where you're going to go, whoa, oh, that went off the rails, you know, but that gives you some awareness for the next when maybe it still does that lightning fast process, but before something comes out of your mouth, you can do your own braking system. Maybe if you keep practicing, that's the goal, right? Is we can put the brakes on before we speak.
Yeah. And it made me think too, when you said we're, you know, instantly we're there, they're going to be a delinquent. We're in the future where we are not present in that moment. So, excuse me. And that's when we start parenting from a place of fear. So if we can become present, we can actually then handle the situation. So it really becomes a practice of becoming present, right? So, and we can't always do that. We're human. We can't always do that. So sometimes the repair work does have to happen afterwards.
And that's a beautiful part of parenting too. This is one thing that as a parent I cling to, is that my mistakes can be good parenting too, because I have an opportunity to show my kids what it means to own up, take responsibility, form a good apology, try to do something to fix the situation if you can, right? Like,
I love it, Penny, because I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about this in the weeks to come, but I love it because it's the best way to teach your child how to give a sincere apology. It's the best way, is by modeling. They don't do as we say, they do what we do. So this is personal growth at its best for everybody involved, us, our children. Sometimes in our mistakes, not sometimes, often our mistakes is where the biggest growth happens.
Right? That's what mistakes are for, to teach us.
Right.
And we always learn better when we say, oh, isn't that interesting, instead of I'm a crap parent.
Yeah, right. Oh, yes. That's a good point. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So be kind, my lovelies, to yourselves, please. We're all working what we can work with the capacity we have at any given moment in a day. Okay. So any other burning thoughts before I offer up the challenge?
Yeah, it's about the challenge, actually. So you go ahead with the challenge, and then I want to add to it.
Okay. So today we're just going to ask you, over the next week, we're going to invite you to start noticing when you're triggered or furred up, or jumping to the future. Even if you notice it after the fact, if you can start to notice it before, like Kim said, you can notice it in your body, or maybe you noticed your thoughts racing. Just see what you notice, and talk to yourself about how interesting that is. And isn't that curious that I would go there? Give that a try. And as always, we'd love to hear how that goes for you. Kim, you had something.
And actually, you covered it. You already covered it, Penny, because what I wanted to say was it's a practice. Begin to notice when you're getting stirred up. But then if you miss it and you happen to have a train wreck, fly off the handle kind of thing, then be kind to yourself. That was the part B, and you covered that already. So yeah, so just be kind.
All right. So that ends us for today. And we will see you back here next Friday, 1 o'clock, for our third video on communication. Take care, everyone, and happy sunny weekend.
See you guys.